So source keeps calling, and when you go, or when you let yourself go, you feel better. And when you don't, you feel worse. So what does the call of source sound like? Many say, well, the call of source should sound like harps and angels. The call of source should sound lovely and loving. And we say, the call of source is all of that. It is loving. It is knowing. It is adoring. But if you're over there in fear or despair, the call of source doesn't sound like that to you through your distorted hearing, because you're listening through the ears that can't hear it in its purity. Jerry and Esther have noticed that when they are tuned in, tapped in, turned on, some music sends them into orbit. Some music wells up within them and makes them weep with joy. And when they're ornery, that same music annoys them. In other words, your vibrational proximity has everything to do with the way the sound of source sounds, or the feel of source feels. If you are in despair and source is calling you, you know what it will sound like to you? Revenge, rage. And many would say, oh, Abraham, that can't be right. We say it is, because it's downstream from where you are. If you were in frustration, source would not call you to revenge. That's going the wrong direction. If you're in frustration and you hear the call of source, it sounds more like hopefulness. But if you are in true despair, you know about this emotional scale. On one end of it is love and appreciation and joy, your feelings of passion, all of that perception of your own personal empowerment. And the other end of the scale, where you feel depressed or fearful, is your perception of total disempowerment. So if something has happened and you feel utterly powerless, anger, rage, revenge, those are downstream thoughts and feelings for you. Your friends liked you better when you were depressed. You were a lot less trouble. And hardly anyone will coach you from depression into anger, because you've been taught that anger is not a good thing, because nobody around you wants to see you angry. Nobody around you wants to see you in revenge. But you know what? Nobody around you cares about you like you care about you. Nobody around you knows. Nobody around you can feel that you can breathe in your rage and revenge, and you couldn't breathe in your fear and depression. So if you can now breathe, is it better for you or worse for you? Wouldn't you rather be mad than afraid? Wouldn't you? Now, we're not going to push you into saying, wouldn't you rather be revengeful? But we know you would rather be revengeful than be afraid. We've been watching the terrorist movement. Those terrorists don't become terrorists because they're tuned in, tapped in, turned on. They become terrorists because they are pure positive energy, like everyone else on the planet who is focused upon something that makes them feel powerless. And the response to terrorists is not coming from joy and appreciation. It's coming from fear also. In other words, the revenge that the terrorists find is because they are moving downstream in a sort of distorted way from the powerlessness they feel. And then the response to the terrorists is a downstream response. In other words, your natural instincts. Watch a child who feels powerless. What does he do at first, until he is broken like the horse? What does he do? He has a temper tantrum, because the temper tantrum is downstream from the powerlessness that he is temporarily believing. And so what we're wanting you to understand is that, there can be all kinds of rules that are written and all kinds of enforcement of them. In other words, all kinds of people from all kinds of places are writing all kinds of rules. But no one will ever get away from this natural, inherent being that you really are. You are all source energy, knowing your power. And when for some brief moment, maybe even a brief moment called 80 or 90 or 100 years of physical life, if for some brief moment you come to believe that you are not the powerful being that you are, you writhe in the discomfort, in the discord of that absence of who you really are. That gap is as big or as narrow as the direction of your thought allows it to be. You were born with an emotional guidance system that lets you know that. We've written a new book called The Astonishing Power of Emotions, and it's all about this gap. It's about this stream. It's to help you to understand that you are powerful beings who must let yourself be the powerful beings that you are if you are to be joyful. You cannot find joy without lining up with who you are. And when you line up with who you are, you return to your natural state of genius, of clarity, of vitality, of power, of knowing, of joy, of life, really.